Okay, so one of the more confusing logic diagrams is probably the activity on the arrow. So I want to show you guys a couple of different scenarios, one without a dummy variable and the other with a dummy variable. I think everybody kind of, because of the introduction of dummy variables, struggles with this a little bit. I think we went over the convention for activity on the arrow in the last PowerPoint. On test, for example, you will be given a scenario like this. There's activity A kicks everything off. There's no immediately preceding activity. A is followed by both B and C. So the immediately preceding activity for both B and C is A, and so on. I guess activity D is preceded by B. Activity E preceded by both C and D. The convention's a little different for this. So usually the activity again is on the arrow. I'm going to show two nodes here, indicate those in increments of 10 usually. 10 is probably easier to stick with, so I got 10 and 20 right here. The activity is on the arrow, right? I think I re-emphasized that. This is activity A right here. So that kicks the whole thing off as activity A. That's followed by both B and C. So this one, I'm going to draw another node up here. Got a little sloppy with that one, but this is activity B right here. Activity C, and again, it's going to take some practice to get the right way to lay these things out, but with a little bit of practice, it should be fairly straightforward. Now notice that the book doesn't have any particular convention about where I draw those arrows or where those arrows terminate. If I start doing this with critical path, however, it will be a point deduction on the test and also lead to a lot of confusion. So the activity on the arrow here is C. D is preceded just by B, so that's a simple arrow right here. And E is preceded by both D and C. So that one's actually a pretty straightforward example. It doesn't get confusing until the introduction of dummy variables. And actually, the way you can track these things as to whether you have a problem or not is if each of these has a unique number identifier. So A in this case is 10-20. B is 20-30. C is 20-40. D is 30-40, and E is 40-50. So each of those has a unique number identifier. It makes it its own unique activity on the arrow. So that right there refers to example 3.1 in your textbook if you wanted to follow along with that example. A more complicated example is given in activity 3.2, and that is as follows. So activity A starts things off again. I've got B is preceded by A, C is preceded by A, and D is preceded by both B and C, and this is actually going to be the complicated thing right here. I'm going to demonstrate how to do this incorrectly first in hopes that clarifies things. I do a lot of things by teaching by bad example. Hope everybody finds the humor in that one right there. But yeah, I'm kind of a cautionary tale, so oftentimes I demonstrate how not to do things first so that you can better understand how to do things properly. So I know everybody in the room or at home or wherever you are, I guess this is online, so you might be in your PJs or whatever, wants to do it this way. It's everybody's natural inclination to do it this way. A kicks things off. I'm going to demonstrate that between 10 and 20, the nodes 10 and 20. Excuse me, let me put that node here. This is activity B, right? Which is immediately preceded by A, so in order. C, I desperately want to do this right here. Man, it'd be so easy if I could do this right here. And then the last one, D, 30-40. Problem is these don't have their own unique identifier. So A, if we take that last example, what we did is 10-20. B is 20-30. C is also 20-30. So I haven't maintained proper logic here in that I don't have unique identifiers, okay? D is 30-40. So I have to reconstruct this diagram in a way that doesn't violate the logic here. And the way I do that is as follows. Most people should be able to get as far as A, at least in this example. So again, A kicks things off. This is the wrong way to do it. This is the right way to do it. I can take B as 20-30 again, right? And I'm going to draw another node here at 40. This will give me a unique number identifier for C. And then comes this little guy right here. This is a dummy variable. Some of the examples in your textbook will have 2 dummies in them. But I can basically make my way through that network without violating that logic right there. So, excuse me, I didn't put the activity A on there. Okay, so activity A is 10-20, B is 20-30, C is 20-40, and D is 40-50. Every single activity has its own number identifier, unique number identifier, and I've still maintained the logic. Okay, so A precedes both B and C. B, for their part, have a predecessor of both A, and D is preceded by both B and C right here. Okay, the only difference between these two right here is that I've inserted this dummy variable so that I could get every single activity with its own unique identifier. You need to study for this for the test a little bit more in depth. It is tricky stuff. There won't be more than a couple of questions on activity in the arrow, but for the purposes of getting this for diagramming things in your brain, I think activity on the arrow is a little bit helpful, and also you will see it from time to time. For example, on the Florida General Contractors exam. But again, if you have any more questions about how to do this, please email me. Otherwise, I hope it clarified things.